In today's episode of HR Visionaries, we talk to Courtney from Current Lighting. Current Lighting is a manufacturing company. Therefore, we'll talk about the challenges of blue-collar recruiting. Stay tuned. Welcome to HR Visionaries, where we unlock the secrets of modern HR. I'm Benjamin, your host. Join us as we shed light on today's HR universe with HR leaders and innovators from across the globe. Whether you're an HR pro, a business leader, or just curious about the future of work, this is your shortcut to the forefront of HR innovation. Brought to you by Hire, the AI talent attraction platform. Welcome to the latest episode of HR Visionaries. I'm looking forward to my guest today, Courtney. Thanks a lot for taking the time.
Pleasure to meet you, Ben. I'm excited to share, hopefully, some good stuff.
Awesome. I'm also looking forward. Courtney, can you tell us a bit about yourself? Who are you? What do you do?
Excellent. Let me see about this. So Courtney Abraham, I am in the HR space that I came into a bit accidentally. So early in my career, I was a retail store manager, went into a startup telecom. So for those in Europe, you had GSM. We didn't have GSM in the States. I joined a startup to bring GSM to the States, kind of as a bag carrying salesperson.
I remember that. So so my mobile phone didn't work in the US. It was like big trouble getting phone calls there. I remember that time.
Yeah, so that was, I just remember trying to tell people that the days of picking up your cell phone and hearing the baby monitor 2 doors down, like those were going to go away. This was now protected conversation of ones and zeros, and it was a hard sell. So I came out of telecom and I went into consulting, and it was strategy, change management, and really all things change. So whether it was the vision and business process that led to training, or it was different areas of culture, etc. I loved my consulting days. And at one point during those consulting days, I met my now husband. And we both agreed that one of us needed to get off the road because we were both consultants, because we had Saturdays and maybe half of a Sunday together because we were always on an airplane. And I raised my hand. I said, okay, I can do this change management thing locally. And so I joined a property and casualty insurer and focused on change management for a number of years. And then the chief HR officer tapped me on the shoulder and said, you do realize everything you're doing is HR. And I was like, what are you talking about? Right? I'm on the revenue side of the business. I'm not going to be that. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so he basically talked to me about everything that I was doing impacted human behavior, impacted processes of org design, et cetera. And I kind of, smiled and chuckled, but I moved into what was then called talent management, still is today, human capital management, talent management. And I've never looked back. It was the job I never knew I wanted. And so it has been a great learning experience, great exploration, and both internal and external, right? External. So from a professional perspective, that's kind of the workup. From a personal perspective, I am a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a mom. I have 4 amazing kids, 3 of which are stepchildren, and they don't like the word children after their names because they're big, they're in their 30s. And then my daughter is 13, soon to be 14. And the best experience of my life is being a parent, because it's the best development experience that gives back constantly. And it's not that I'm developing them, it's that they're developing me.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear. Well, also the same with employees very often, right? So it's like, okay, it's amazing how engaged and empowered employees can also change an organization.
Definitely. Yes. It's it's the good of human behavior and what people actually can come together to achieve.
That's exactly what I wanted to follow up on. So you mentioned something like, okay, well, in change management, everything is HR, so to say.
Can you elaborate a bit more on that, given that's obviously super important in terms of like not only how the importance of HR within the organization has changed, but like what HR impacts in an organization?
Yeah, excellent question. Big question. So let me break it down into little parts, right? When I think of any organization, we have to look at its construct, right? So its organizational design and its operating model. What those levers are that indicate success, and whether it's public or private, how we're actually reporting those results and in what time frame, if we're reinvesting in the business or we're taking cost out. From a people perspective, you do all of that with people, right? So yes, technology is coming through and it's automating many of the processes and making us get smarter and more efficient. But at the end of the day, it is about aligning expectations, really clear expectations, so that people understand what is their role, what is the scope, so kind of boundaries or goalposts, if you will. Who do they need to work with, in what time frames? And if they kick the soccer ball through the goalpost and achieve the win, what does that mean for them, right? So what does success look like? And so when you look in an organization, it is partnering with leaders, it's partnering with middle managers, it's partnering really with employees, individual contributors, to help folks find out the answers to those questions. And it's never a one and done, right? As business needs change, as the economic factors impact, we are constantly redesigning, and we're constantly, I would use an intervention word. We never call it that, but we're partnering, right, internally to figure out what's working, what's not, what needs to be tweaked. Someone left, so you have a key vacancy. We'll go ahead and redesign the scope of the roles. Who can do different? Maybe no one is ready for being promoted into that next role, but they're ready for a piece of it. So how do we take advantage of the strengths of the workforce in order to continue down that path of success?
I think this is super interesting what you said, and the so what does success constitute, and also then the question is like what is performance, right? I think these are super big questions these days, and I also wanted to ask and also prepare here for kind of bigger question here, Courtney. So nowadays that organizations are very different to like 30 years ago, where you had like many people executing tasks that were much more standardized than they are today. Enabled by technology, we can be all so much more specialized, and people have nowadays much more key man risks, or companies have more key man risks nowadays. So how does that influence HR? So first, to get the right people in, and then also ensure that the right people stay, because if the right people leave, it's not just like years ago when stuff was more standardized. Okay, get someone in, he or she can do it, but nowadays it constitutes a much bigger problem.
Yeah, it is daily, right? In all of our organizations. I've had the privilege of working horizontally, from, oh goodness, from manufacturing to high-tech telecom to retail to property and casualty insurance and some others, grocery in there. And I really believe, the functions, IT, HR, finance, and a couple of other things, they're horizontal. You can do it, you take your craft anywhere. From an area of people, all of our organizations suffer from good talent leaving, right? It is a singular pain point, and depending on how well you're doing as a business dictates whether you actually have a bench, right? So employees who are growing up to become that next, and how mature your processes are will dictate how good your succession planning is. And even if you don't have a thorough succession plan, it's what are the development experiences that allow someone to gain skills, exposure, expertise, so that they can raise their hand and apply for a role and be considered. we talk a lot about standard operating procedures. We talk a lot about who is a single failure point. And it's not that that employee is doing anything wrong. It's that it hurts the business in the event that we say in the States, if that person wins the lottery, right? So if they win the lottery and they decide to leave us, what happens with that role? And can we continue to execute the tasks and activities up and downstream of that role? So there are many things that organizations can do, and some of us do it better than others, and we should all steal shamelessly from each other and learn, right, what works. I don't know that there's a lot of original, right, innovative thought with this. It is tweaking so it works for your organization. I have seen great success in, we talk about discretionary effort. So when individuals have a passion for something, right, inside their job or outside their job, we as organizations, we need to learn what those passion points are, what those motivators are, so that we can leverage that passion in our organizations. And let me give you an example. So we are manufacturing. So we have engineers, we have manufacturing factories inside and outside of the United States. But for the most part, individuals have a very defined set of tasks and activities that they need to achieve. We have a set of core values. Many organizations have values. And one of our values is doing right. And what that means is respect, integrity, giving back, helping others. And we run a Doing Right campaign to understand what's passion, what does that look like in employees' lives? And we've found a wonderful way to kind of grab those coattails. So if someone is very passionate about food insecurity and they volunteer at food banks or in capturing food drives, we ask if we can help support them, and we bring that into the organization. And then it's their story and it's them as the poster to say why this is important to them and why we can come together to help achieve this particular goal. And so that's, something very different from what they do on a daily basis, but it creates stickiness. And what I mean by that is you really can go anywhere and make probably, the same amount of money, right? Lateral moves, you can go anywhere, but you can't go anywhere and feel part of an organization that you're proud to be a member of, that gives you joy, right? In your job or in the cultural artifacts that surround you. And we as employers, we have to do probably a better job at figuring out what those passion points are so that we can create a greater stickiness and retain our best employees and actually just all employees.
Okay. Allow me to dive a bit deeper here. So I think in particular the issue, let's stay with the food bank. So how do you find out from employees that the issue of food banks matters to them greatly? So you probably don't hand them a list like, okay, tick some boxes. So we have some potential areas of interest. Let us know what suits you best. So, but those employees need to know that you care about this, right?
Yes, well, and we ask. So the simplest way to get the information is just ask the question. And so we go direct. Yeah. So we actually run, we launched it last year, and it's called Apply for Our Doing Right campaign. And so we ask employees what they're passionate about, how they volunteer and give back in the communities in which they work, live, and play. And if there's an opportunity for us to help support those efforts. And some employees simply want to tell us what they're doing, and they're like, no, it's my personal life. Please don't get involved, right? Others are like, oh my gosh, this is great. If I could get 15 or 40 or 100 employees to help support this, that would be so meaningful. And that's when we jump in and we say, okay, so tell us more, right? Tell us what it is, how we can contribute, what this looks like, and what would be a meaningful impact. So I think simple, ask.
It's super interesting to how to do this and to also do this in a way that, well, everyone also has the liberty to say, okay, well, it's not private matter, so don't interfere here. And how do you create this culture where people make those statements?
It's a great question. Oh, goodness. And it takes a ton of time. Yeah, it takes a ton of time because you have to have, that the relationship with the employee starts the moment they say yes to an offer, right? So this whole pre-boarding period where they're excited, they're never as, I used to work for a leader that said, no one is ever as excited to join the company as they are before day one. I was like, wait, oh my gosh, like that's mind blowing, but there's something to that. Because as soon as the employee has all of these sets of expectations and the communication that lead up to day one, and then on day one, we have such an opportunity to engage, to get it right, right? How did we set them up? Who did they meet? How did we talk about what's important to us as a company? How did we get them plugged in so that they can create a network internal to the organization? And what is that balance of the social interaction outside of your job, but inside the company, and the social interaction with your own team or the people that you work side by side with on a regular basis? I don't know that there's a perfect formula. I think, you can go back to engagement surveys where you ask employees how they want to participate in the organization and the things that are important to them, right? So the organization should focus on wellness and it should focus on the right benefits and competitive pay. But we also want access to leadership and we want the ability to feel part of the larger, multinational as opposed to just my singular office. So I think you can look at all of those data points, and then you have to test, right? And you have to come up with experiments and activities. And if they bomb terribly and no one comes, then that was all right, never repeat again. But if you can get the right blend of activities that people will participate in, then you get people to raise their hand to say, oh, I'll lead that next time. And it becomes a self-sustaining effort, which really creates that culture, right? It's that fabric of how do we treat each other? What are the words we use? How do we celebrate? How do we admit failure and mistakes? But I think all of that comes from engaging, right? And having conversations and really transparent dialogue with the employees.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and it's also super important that you have this values that people share, right? So as an organization, as as a kind of living organism in that sense, it's so important to have these shared values. Courtney, can you tell us a bit about what's currently on your mind? So what is something that keeps you occupied at the moment quite a bit at work?
Oh, goodness. A lot of things. I think right now so we're manufacturing. And one of the challenges I find is, as many other employers are finding, is we have a high number of employees in the baby boomer generation who are eligible to retire, maybe choosing to stay, which is great because we need their knowledge and their mentorship. But a high number of employees are getting ready to leave in the next 5 to 10 years. And so how do we build pipelines and training programs within our organizations to leverage that knowledge, to get people ready so that we can operate and execute initiatives? And I think it keeps me awake because there's a high number, right, within my own organization. And we do co-ops and we do internships, but not at the same volume. And if you don't retain those employees that are coming out of university right away, you have to figure out, do we have enough people in the middle, right, who have the aspirations to do different or do more? And if not, then how do we continue to, every time there's a vacancy, look at that as a redesign or a hire from the outside, or hiring, again, an additional co-op to help fill that pipeline. So it is important for all organizations. We certainly haven't mastered it. It is an experiment in process, right, every day. But it is on all of our hearts and minds at the moment.
It's it's super interesting to learn about this, given I think from company to company, from sector to sector, all a bit different. But it's going to be, I think, great challenge, in particular for many manufacturing companies, in particular in entire Western world, right? So that many people who choose a career in manufacturing 30 years ago now are on the way to retire. So it's absolutely remarkable. What do you think? Can companies like yours learn from different sectors? Let's say the tech sector where you have worked previously.
Yes. Oh gosh, we can learn a ton from everyone, right? You always, I think the benefit is looking outside of your industry to understand what people are doing and how they're doing it differently, and how do you tweak that so a piece of it works for your own organization. When you look at tech, the layoffs and the constant flow of organizations downsizing in the last 2 years, post-pandemic is constant. And it's Q1 24. Oh my goodness. Every day you're seeing, just a continuous downsizing of really capable and quality talent. So as organizations, the first thing I think we look at is when we have to go through periods of shrinking and we're downsizing, what are other companies doing and how are they treating their employees? Right. So I look to those organizations to say, okay, so what happens? In some instances, those companies are actually contacting other employers on behalf of the employees to say, here's this great, amazing group of talent. Here's their capabilities. Please hire them. And they're acting as the recruiter or the sourcer for other organizations. And I applaud that. We have done those partnerships a few times. And I also think, outside of that, there is fascination in the, oh gosh, we're returning everyone to office, hybrid versus remote. And in the States, at least, a great majority of employers are asking employees or mandating employees to come back. So we're 4 days a week in the office. I happened to be talking to one of our distribution partners yesterday, and they said, oh, Courtney, we're 5 days in the office. And I was like, oh gosh, how does that work for you? Right? Because that can impact who you recruit and the types of talent. And it's not just the millennials or the Gen Zs who don't value yet coming into an office. It's also depending on where you are in your season of life, whether you want more flexibility. And so constantly looking at organizations, what are they doing? How are they doing it? What blew up? What's in the news? What's working really well? How can we learn from that? I also think innovation. So when you think about the tech sector specifically, there's so much competition that many of them have, fully funded incubators where all it is an innovation center. And there's ebbs and flows, right, of how many people are in it, what season it is of the cycle. But I think that's really important, because if you become stagnant, you can lose traction and you can lose business. So how are we innovating? How are others innovating? What does that look like? How does that funding model manifest? I think there's just so many opportunities to learn from others.
What do you think are the most important trends for you as an HR organization in the next few years?
Important trends for the future, right?
It's a very open question.
Oh gosh.
I appreciate that.
Well, and maybe let's think about, the next 3 years.
Okay.
Let's like make it short. I think, one of the things that I have been fascinated with is the whole Gen AI, right? So as an HR practitioner, I am a consumer of everything that's taking place out there, and I'm reading constantly because I really didn't understand a lot of it. And so I follow some folks, and everything they post, everything they do videos of, everything they recommend to read or watch, I am participating in. So I've tested so many tools out there and tried to figure out how could this impact our workforce. how do we use it responsibly? And I think, people talk about use cases and experimenting, and gosh, just try it, right? 80%, go. I think this is really going to impact our workforce and our roles. So whether it is documentation and graphics, and you see everything right with Sora and others that are taking place, that's going to impact a high variety of roles, but it allows them, we still need a human being on the end. You need a human being on the front, you need a human being on the end, but it allows you to do things so differently, because now you're not spending countless hours coding to create and manipulate. Now you're editing and fine tuning. So it's really fun and it's an exciting place. We did something, maybe some of my peers will think that's hugely controversial, but we don't have a large instructional design population from a learning perspective. And so we challenged one of our team members who's kind of techie, right? And has great learning agility. I said, go out and learn as much as you possibly can, but here's my goal. I want to be able to create short learning modules. That's our script, our content, our company, using avatars. But I want the avatar to look like a human being, just like you and I are doing. Oh my gosh, she has exceeded expectations. And we've already launched our first module, and it took her 3 weeks, like from beginning to end. She now has 3 more modules. So she's got an 8-week timeline, and I have no doubt at all that she's going to be able to do this. So I think Gen AI can really impact the area of learning and development. We've also started to create a customer service curricula, not using any human beings. It's just using the tools that are out there. And now we're manipulating, creating facilitator guides, but the tools are creating the facilitator guides. We're then the human beings picking them up and saying, does this actually work, right? Let's test it out. I think, I think it's limitless, right? So Gen AI will impact our workforces, and we have to figure out how, in what way, and what are the guardrails that allow us to use it safely as organizations. I also think with the exodus of the baby boomers, right, and the retirees, we have to look at our organizations to figure out what we need to do differently. I have a daughter who is 13, and she grew up, basically with this. I'm holding my phone, strapped to her, right? So from the moment she was probably 4, she was playing games online. When she was 12, we gave in and we gave her the phone, right? So that we could talk to her. But she knows more about my iPhone than I know about my iPhone. And so the constant feedback and the ability to navigate and work in this digital world is impacting, our organizations and what people expect. But also, we can learn so much from everyone around us. We can learn a ton from the generations that are entering the workforce now.
Indeed, when it comes to mobile phones and to the iPhone, I always find this question so interesting. So what was the most popular app in 2006?
Oh gosh, are you asking? I have no idea.
The iPhone was released 2007.
Oh,
it's and it's like, okay, so you can't even think about that. Well, the possibility that there's no mobile internet is something that is like completely impossible for us to even think about, right? And that, therefore, I always find it so funny when you ask people, okay, what was the most popular app in 2006? Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And nowadays, well, you're obviously so connected with your phone, with your devices. It's absolutely stunning how this will also impact HR going forward. So to have those people who are, well, pre-internet, those people who are pre-Gen AI, and now, well, the generation that's now growing up, well, obviously growing up with generative AI. So it's
and it's funny when you say that, right? We've got the Alexas and the Google bots right in the house. And so we're constantly saying, Alexa, tell me, and I'm sorry for everybody whose bot just went off for saying her name out loud. But whether you're talking to Siri or you're talking to your car or whatever you have in your household, One of the things that I have to retrain myself on is, I go to Google to search. And when Bing comes up on my work computer, I get really annoyed because I'm like, no, I don't want Bing, I want Google. However, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, someone turned me on to perplexity.ai. Oh my gosh, I don't know that I'll use Google in the future. Like, there are so many great tools out there that we have to just learn about and test and use in both our personal and professional lives.
Thank you so much for your time, for your insights. I really enjoyed our conversation. It was super insightful. Thanks a lot.
Excellent. Thanks, Ben. It was fun.
It was great fun. And all of you guys, thanks a lot for listening in. And I need to say, since you talked so much about Gen AI, we have talked about that before. So it's not like we are placing some advertisement here or anything. So this is just a super funny coincidence. Thanks a lot, Courtney, again. And all of you guys, see you next time.